That's criminology there. John, over to you.
Well, now joining us from Idlib province is Dr. Abdullah Tanari, who has been treating victims of the attack. From Salford is Yasmin Lahlawi of the Syrian advocacy group Rethink Rebuild, and from Whiteley by Jerry Smith, who led the UN-backed operation to remove Syria's chemical weapons back in 2013. Dr. Tanari, have you yet had those supplies you desperately need to treat the victims of this chemical attack?
Yes, in my hospital I had enough amount of antidote to treat the patient which I received. Do you
have any sense of how many injured people there are? We know there are about 75 dead, but how many injured do you think?
570.
570.
They were distributed to most hospitals in Idlib Governorate. My hospital received 22 patients.
And
treated all of them.
In an attack like this, how realistic is it for patients to actually recover completely?
So if the patient arrived to the hospital alive, maybe we can treat him. But most of the patients, they die before arriving to hospitals. They suffocate because of the huge amount of secretions in their lungs and because of the paralysis of their muscles, because of this nerve agent which was used. So they suffocate. If they reach the hospital, mostly they can be treated. We can intubate them and help them. But mostly they die before, on the way, during transportation and evacuation.
And have you had to treat chemical weapons victims before?
I treated chlorine gas victims many times before, but this first time we meet such kind of chemical weapons.
And do you know what the chemical was? Was it sarin?
So symptoms and the good response to the treatment make us suppose mostly it is sarin.
Jerry, I wonder if we could come to you, because you were actually involved in clearing sarin from that site in 2013 when Syria's chemical weapons were first removed. Do you have any way of seeing from this distance whether this could have been simply the hitting of a chemical weapons dump as opposed to a bomb from the sky?
Well, I think we need to be very conscious of all sort of playbooks that are being put out there at the moment. I think it's very premature if we start dismissing one accusation or another. What is clear from the video that I've seen is that people are suffering from some kind of intoxication. It would also appear that some of the signs and symptoms they have are consistent with that of nerve agents. Obviously with the doctor there, if they are responding to nerve agent treatment, that would indicate that may well be the cause of the poisoning. It's too early really to tell about the scenarios. They're basically either Syrian jets hit a store, and I don't agree with your reporter that reported earlier with regards to the fact that would absolutely consume all the sarin. That's not the case at all. If it is sarin was stored there and conventional munitions were used there, there is every possibility that some of those munitions were not consumed, and that in fact the sarin liquid was ejected and could well have affected the outstanding population. Of course, that conventional attack will still open up a whole bunch of questions of why the sarin was there, what it was doing there, who made it, and also why would Syria consider attacking a known chemical site with all the downstream issues of threatening a local population.
But would it be possible for the rebels themselves to have sarin?
Well, potentially. I mean, sarin is not an easy material to manufacture. But at the same time, it is not beyond the realms of possibility. Particularly some of the opposition groups out there, and particularly referring to Daesh, may well have a chemical weapon capability. But there are other options as well. It could have come from a part of the original Syrian stockpile. But that in itself then would raise questions of why that wasn't declared in the declarations in 2013 or subsequent amendments.
I'd like to come back to you in a moment, but I want to go to Yasmin Nalawi. Yasmin, there's President Trump apparently undergoing some kind of a change of heart on Syria. What do you want him to do?
Well, it's quite simple, really, John. What we want is civilian protection at the end of the day. We want to see that Syrians are not being killed by chemical weapons. We want to see that Syrian civilians aren't being killed by barrel bombs. We want to see hospitals protected. We want to see schools protected. We want to see people protected within their own cities without the threat of forcible displacement. And one point that should be made here is, you know, the Syrian conflict didn't just start right now. It is the worst attack that we've seen in a while. But the Assad regime has been using numerous methods over the past 6 years, not least which was the displacement of East Aleppo, which happened in December 2016. Before that, there was an attack on the humanitarian aid convoy of 31 buses in September 2016. And before that, the forcible evacuation or displacement of Daraya. So to say that now is the change of heart is coming, I don't see how President Trump didn't see that before.
Well, now, let me just ask you this. You want the civilian population protected. Does that mean you want UN troops on the ground?
If we see political will from the international community to do something about Syria, there are so many policy options. We've been presenting policy recommendations to the UK government over the past few years, and they can be as simple as get baby milk into besieged areas to implementing a no-bombing zone. The problem hasn't been the lack of policy options that are feasible or legal or in line with our national interests. The problem time and time again has been the absence of political will to get involved in the first place.
Okay, Jerry Smith, just very briefly, when you were clearing those weapons back in 2013, did you think fundamentally the country had been cleared of them, or it was always probable that there were other dumps?
Well, our task was very much to deal with the declaration that Syria gave, and given the circumstances that Syria came to the Chemical Weapons Convention, we had nothing to suggest that there was any other than a complete and utter declaration. Having said that, the OPCW, the guardians of the Chemical Weapons Convention, continue to look at various declaration issues, and that is still ongoing.
And just finally, Dr. Tanari, would you like to see some sort of intervention from the United Nations or indeed the United States on the ground?
We waited this intervention 6 years and we didn't see anything, just permission. I don't wait from them anything.
Dr. Tanari, thank you very, very much for joining us from Idlib, and thank you, Yasmin Nalawi, for joining us from Salford, and indeed Jerry Smith. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, all three. Thank you. Matt.
Thanks, John.